I want to go on to perhaps a more, what may seem more serious question, but is very much at the center of the dramaturgy of the show. It's now perceived around the world, really, as a show about a modern America.
Okay.
An allegory on capitalism. The cash cube replacing the proverbial cash cow. Did you plan to turn Walt's story into such a kind of allegory about American capitalism or the way American capitalism is going or could go? Or is it an accidental byproduct of the personal transformation which you've mentioned?
I think that you fans of Breaking Bad, you are just as free as you are free to perceive it, the show, any way you wish, and your perception of it is no less valid than mine. Speaking for myself, when I first conceived of the idea, I was intrigued by this one man. I found him a very interesting character study, and for me, first and foremost, Breaking Bad is a character study about one exceptional man. He's exceptionally bad, but he is exceptional in that he transforms himself in a way that most people either would be unable or unwilling to do, which is good because he's a very bad guy. But I think it is legitimate to say that the show does shine a light or does represent terrible economic problems we have in the United States, and indeed that are worldwide at this point. I think it also shines a light on the healthcare system in the United States, which is obviously not running as well as it should. But really, at the end of the day, what I had in mind was very much a character study about one man and using these unfortunate realities of the economic problems and healthcare problems to illuminate Walt's problems and oddly enough not so much the other way around, if that makes sense.
Society doesn't offer enough possibilities to experience this kind of glorious self-affirmation. Do you have to go into, do you have to seek it at the fringes of society, either by taking drugs or going into crime or going to Wall Street?
As I say, I think the audience is free and open to interpret it that way. I myself interpret Walt's decisions as, if you will, flaws in his particular character. This is a man who, when we first meet him, he's just a day or two shy of turning 50 years old. And in his particular case, he seems to be someone who has been a sleepwalker throughout his life. And then we get hints in later episodes that he did have moments in his life where he was more engaged, he was more in control of things. So the question becomes, I think I realize in hindsight, sometimes it's hard to know what your own show is about, why you're making it. Sometimes the expression, you feel very much living the expression, I can't see the forest for the trees. But in hindsight, now that the show is over, I think a great deal of what I was writing about, what my writers and I were writing about, was fear. Walter is a very fearful person when we first meet him, and that fear has hardened, has calcified into, or the way he approaches that fear has turned him into someone who lives in sort of a zombified state of being. He just sort of sleepwalks through his life. And when in that first episode, when he gets that cancer diagnosis, after the shock wears off and the scales fall from his eyes, as it were, he says, I am awake. And he is free from that fear. He says in a later episode to his brother-in-law, Hank, he said, I used to be scared all the time. I'd wake up in the middle of the night worrying about what could happen, what might happen. And now that I've had my diagnosis, I sleep like a baby. So I realize, so I think it's a very valid conclusion to draw that this show says things about the culture, but to me, it's also about this one man.
It seems to me, Vince, that much as you would probably like to hesitate your answer to this question, that you're pretty critical of the American justice system.
Well, yeah. I tend to shy away from overt politics in my writing because human problems will go on forever. And, you know, the problems of living that we all face, no matter where we live throughout the world, there are certain human truths and constants that allow, I am in no way, what I'm about to say is in no way comparing the work we do to Shakespeare, but when you think of Shakespeare, he wrote about basic human constants. And that's the lesson I like to take as a writer. Interesting thing about Saul Goodman is that, but I try not to overtly put, I think that was my point, we're not overtly political with the show, but there are certain realities, certainly with the justice system, that we would be remiss to shy away from, and that is one of them. But the interesting thing to me about Saul Goodman is that he seems to enjoy these dirty waters in which he swims. He is one of the rare characters on the show who truly understands who he is and embraces who he is. He's happy being Saul Goodman. He's comfortable in his own skin, and I think fundamentally Walter White is not. That's why I find Saul so much fun to write for. He really enjoys the dirt, the underbelly, you know, of it all. I think that's interesting.